start coin there. And I want to look at why it's important to have your own media, why it's important to have somebody that questions the corporations, questions the political elite. And we're going to look at Ireland, where we have covered this story for years. They were the biggest of the financial collapses, one of the biggest. And what they did compared to Iceland was they transferred the private debts of the banks and they put it onto the taxpayer. They made it sovereign debt. Therefore, it was, they couldn't ever escape it. So banking inquiry, property porn in media fed economic bubble. Relationships with politics, corporates stopped media being a critical watchdog. Notice that property porn. And also in the Sun, they show, porn as well, literally, in order to keep you stupid.
Yeah, they mix soft porn with property price porn. So they'll show overinflated flats all over London being priced at 2 or 3 times their actual value, interspersed with pictures of naked girls and flopping around with their naked bosoms. Because that's Murdoch's mandate, is to mix soft porn with property porn. So
in Ireland, however, they're having an inquiry into how the economy collapsed. And one of the people they spoke to is Julian Mersel. And author of The Political Economy and Media Coverage of the European Economic Crisis, The Case of Ireland, Dr. Mersel said effectiveness in predicting an impending crisis was down to 3 key factors: close ties with corporate and government interests, reliance on advertising, and sourcing of stories. So he said, first of all, there was an implicit threat for any media organization offering unfavorable coverage of events that advertising should go elsewhere. So remember, we saw that recently with Peter Oborne leaving the Telegraph because he wanted to cover HSBC. And apparently he says that Telegraph had a cozy relationship, a lucrative advertising relationship with HSBC, so they didn't want to cover that. Well, this is what they found investigating the data over in Ireland as well. He said also sourcing of information. So these think tanks, he said these think tanks would also, they were relying on these established institutions for information about the property market. And if the journalists expose any negative information about the housing bubble, which they weren't allowed to call it a bubble, they also would be cut off from information.
Right. Well, in Ireland, the property porn is different. In the UK, they use naked women's breasts. In Ireland, they use naked cow udders to get people to seduce them into butter. It's all about butter in Ireland, isn't it? It's an economy based on butter. And therefore, they wanted to have butter as their central bank as the only collateral keeping the Irish economy going. So they have naked cow udders mixed in with property price speculation, and this has created the boom. And then Anglo-Irish Bank was making these loans fraudulently with the help of the Bank of Ireland, which assisted in a fraudulent manner. They committed massive fraud, which was proven. They paid a small fine, and now there is no reform at all and a resumption of a bubble.
Yeah, so what they're showing is that there is no difference at all between the media, the corporate elite, and the political elite. They are united in presenting the same story. Before the bubble, they refused to ever admit it was a bubble, and they pushed whatever the property developers, the corporates, the banks, the politicians wanted. Now, after the bubble, they also say this is continuing. It hasn't changed. It is still the same. And so they said not only all the newspapers there agree that austerity is great, and also they said that after the crash, the media also presented the government's crisis resolution policies in a largely favorable manner. Again, in line with Irish and global elites' views, he said. The media enthusiastically endorsed the blanket guarantee and declared that it was, quote, the cheapest bailout in the world. NAMA was called bold and imaginative and the Holy Grail, while the Irish Times claimed it was our best bet.
Right. They stoked a huge bubble. They had no reform whatsoever, and the Irish economy is once again relying on this huge bubble mentality and is entering into another collapse of the Irish property market. Now, when I say the Irish property market's about to collapse, nobody will take that to heart the same way they didn't take it to heart in 2007, because they're deluded by the media, because RTE, which is one of the biggest financial media terrorists in the world, they go out there and they put forth massive propaganda and lies. RTE.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is the important thing. Like, forget about the housing bubble. Who cares? Because
the truths.
People can tune into Keiser Report. They can turn into the truths. They can actually go question themselves. When the media is making you so stupid, they're hiding stuff from you. You either accept it and become stupid. And this is why you need to support things things like alternative media, because then let's go to this quick tweet. This is from RTE. You mentioned RTE.
Yes.
They're the state broadcaster. The previous article was talking about the newspapers. And here's the broadcaster, RTE, what they tweeted. Report finds TTIP would aid economic growth, employment, and investment. Sounds like the positive, cheery messages about all the austerity and all
whoever
the
wrote that was fantasizing over a naked cow udder, right? Writing that propaganda. Ooh, this cow udder. Ooh, I love it. I'm going to write propaganda for RTE because I'm a sick media psycho.
And because of alternative media, I want to read quick 2 responses.
Ooh, butter. I love butter.
To the tweet from RTE. This is from Jonathan Vulture 9. He says, and if you believe that, you'll believe pigs can fly. Anna Kaiwi says, LOL, and you think someone will believe this? It's embarrassing for you as a company to think people still ignorant about today's issues.
Utter fetishists over there at RTE. And nothing they say is believable in any sense of the word. I got to go over to the True Era Cafe on Whitmore Street in the New Era estate of Hoxton.